Hey everybody, it's Rebecca Johnson of Supergirl Radio. I'm trying to troubleshoot some StreamYard issues that are probably related to my doing because I scheduled these things way in advance, and apparently StreamYard doesn't care for that. So I'm trying to get Facebook back up. We are live and wired on YouTube. But let me see if I can get us on Facebook and see what's going on there. I'm hoping to get that added in for anybody who is watching on Facebook. So hopefully StreamYard will be a stream. It looks like if you wanted to watch us on Facebook, we should be live on Facebook now. So my apologies to the Facebook people. If you are a Facebook person who wants to watch us on Facebook, you should be able to do that. And Morgan, I think you are muted. And Morgan is not on us. We have not podcasted in several weeks, maybe a month. We are rusty here on Supergirl Radio. I didn't even get a chance to post on social media that we were going live. So thanks for everybody who showed up. So I'm just out of sorts this week. My apologies. But we are trying to get back into the swing of things. It looks like Morgan's going to have to reconnect into StreamYard. So we'll see if she is able to come back and join us. So for this episode of Supergirl Radio, we are going to be talking about Superpowered, the DC story. So hopefully anybody watching and wanting to hang out with us for this live stream, hope you've done your homework and watched Superpowered, the DC story on max.com. Stream it on Max. So you can watch it there if you would like. It is the 3-part documentary story of DC Comics. Or is it? That's what we'll talk about. So if you have any thoughts, please share them in the chat and we will get to them. And it looks like we've got Sean Coutier 74 in the chat. So thank you for joining us and thank you for hanging out with us. So if you have any thoughts, let us know. If you have any snap judgments, I didn't put any snap judgments in. It's been real chaotic for Rebecca Johnson here lately, so we're fortunate that I remembered how to work StreamYard. So hopefully you'll hang out with us and contribute with your thoughts about DC Comics and the history of DC Comics, because that will be the thing we will be talking about. So it looks like Morgan may need to restart. So we will wait on Morgan to do that. We'll figure that out. We're going to do a little troubleshooting, but in the meantime, we will wait around for her so we can talk about anything y'all want to talk about. If there's anything in the chat you want to discuss, we will come and talk about that. Let's see. Team Gautier has a comment about Marv Wolfman. So I guess we can talk about that now while we wait on Morgan. CM Gutierrez says, I finally know who Marv Wolfman is from Crisis on Infinite Earths from the Arrowverse Part 5, the Legends of Tomorrow episode. He's the guy asking for autographs from The Flash and Supergirl. That is correct. He is one of the guys in charge and responsible for Crisis on Infinite Earths, the comic book series, the revolutionary big event that happened that wiped everything down to one Earth and destroyed the multiverse. So I think it was very fitting that he was there in that episode. So it was a real treat. It was kind of a very fitting cameo that he got to be a part of that, especially with Flash and Supergirl, because he killed both of them in Crisis on Infinite Earths. Yes, New Rachel kind of chimed in as I was having that thought, asking, "Is he the guy who killed Barry and Carr in the comics?" Yes, I would put that responsibility squarely on his shoulders. I think he would take responsibility for that as well. So there were a couple of creators that were featured in the documentary, so we'll talk about some of them uh, and talk about the structure of the documentary. I think that's also important as well. So I'll be curious about Morgan's thoughts about that. So we will hang out and see if we can fix the technical issues that we've got here. If anything, I will see if Morgan can join from her phone and see if we can do it that way. But as we have stated, we kind of took a break for things and everything is broken now. So we will see. Okay. All right. So, Morgan, if you get a chance, if you're hearing me, which I think you may be, if you want to try to get into StreamYard on your phone, I will send you an invite. We can try it that way if you're having laptop troubles. We'll get experimental and try to see if we can get Morgan on the podcast on the live stream, because I need her take on this, because there are some things I have really strong feelings about this documentary, but Morgan may not have the same strong feelings about the things I have strong feelings about. So I'm curious to see what the perspective is there. Okay, so I have hang on with us for a second. Okay, so we are having some technical issues, but we'll try to correct those. Let's see. Okay, so while we're here, I'll take some questions. So, Sim Gautier asks on Max, not HBO Max, Max, the 3 episodes were listed under season 1. Does that mean that there will be more seasons? Not necessarily. They have to. I think in terms of the metadata that goes into the application that Max operates out of, I think it has to have, if it is a TV episode, my guess is that they have to list it as episodes. So versus like a movie is just one thing, but if you have multiple parts, you have to list it as episodes, and if you have episodes, you have to have a season. So I think it's just structured that way. I think in the app now, who's to say they may come back and say, hey, we have a season 2. Oh, so it looks like
I just turned the camera on.
It wasn't turned on?
No.
Oh. We have a Mike appearance. Thank you, Mike, for fixing the.
Bunsen's here too.
Oh, we've got where's Beaker?
Bunsen's here.
Almost have everybody.
Where is he? There you are, buddy. Hi. Say hi.
Bunsen has really taken it upon himself to be present during the Supergirl radio episodes. This is now his new spot.
He felt out of the loop the last couple of weeks as we weren't recording. Okay, let me.
We are
I think you needed to restart. I think that was the big thing.
You think that was it? It was so weird. It's never done that.
We're so out of sync. I'm like late getting
great.
the doc.
I feel like it's going so great.
We have been just out of the loop. We're really rusty. So
we're not. I don't think we're rusty at all. I think this is what the people want, right? Technical difficulties.
Yeah, make sure you get the mic turned or plugged in. Oh, well, we lost Morgan again, so we'll see. We'll see if she can come back. So, so yeah, CM Gutier. I think I answered your question about the episodes and the season in a Max, because I've seen that with other documentaries as well. There are multiple parts, so they could come back and do a season 2. But my guess is probably not. Unless, well, actually, 10, 20 years down the road, maybe they go back and say, let's cover the next couple of decades, or the wherever we left off. Maybe they'll want to come back and do it again. That's one of my questions. I don't know if people in the chat know. I was trying to think. I didn't get a good amount of time to do some research on it, but I was trying to think if there were other documentaries about DC Comics. I feel like there was something, because in Superpowered, the DC story, they kept showing interviews of people like Carmine Infantino, where it looked like they had done something previously. And so they put those interviews into this documentary. So I was curious if anyone knew what those things might have been, because if this is supposed to be the documentary that is the full story of DC Comics, I don't know how I feel about that. But I would be curious if there were other documentaries about DC, if someone knew in the chat. So let me take this comment from Jay Casali. Thank you for joining us. Sorry for the chaotic nature of tonight's live stream. We're trying to we've taken maybe almost a month off. So we're trying to get back into this swing of things. Everything's broken. We're really trying to gather ourselves. But the comment is, when I watched it, like they covered the I like they covered the 1978 Superman movie and Tim Burton's 1989 Batman. Yes, they did indeed cover those things, and a lot of the live action and animated adaptations from the comics as well. And so I have a lot of thoughts about that. But I think in the context of the Christopher Reeves 1978 Superman movie was actually put in context for me in terms of the DC timeline. So that was actually pretty interesting. I will say that had never been put in such a way for me before, because I've always heard about the film production aspect of it, but to put it into the timeline of DC Comics and what was going on at the time of the actual comic book company, that was something that I learned. So I'd be curious if there were other things that people in the chat learned, what they maybe came away with that they didn't previously know. I have a couple of things that I was like, oh, that's new. I didn't know that. Some things were sort of connecting the dots there for me. So yeah, they definitely talk a lot about the live action things. Although, and this is one of my biggest gripes about the documentary, is that there was one kind of section that I thought they spent about 10 seconds on and then moved right past. And I thought that was very strange, because they did not address the the Justice League film of it all. They did not talk much about the Snyderverse. They did not talk much about the DCEU. They did not feature Zack Snyder. I thought that was very strange for having set up an entire cinematic universe, having made billions and billions of dollars off of that, and used a lot of his footage, but did not talk about him much at all. I thought was very strange. So there were things about that I would like to get into more detail when we finally get Morgan back up and running, and we'll see if we can do that. So we'll hang out for a little bit longer. If anybody has any questions, let me know. I'm kind of spitballing here about some things. Trying to think if there's anything DC related that I have been checking out recently. But let's see. CM Gutier 74 says, if anything, they highlighted James Gunn. They definitely did. We'll talk about that. And then Jay Casali says they even acknowledged the Airverse, which I thought they would never do. Yes, well, They featured the Arrowverse pretty prominently because Greg Berlanti was one of the main interviews in the documentary. So we will definitely be talking about all those things, especially the Arrowverse. So Morgan, are you good? No good? Okay, let's see. All right, so what's going on?
So my headphones won't work. My mic won't work.
Oh no! Well,
Every time I plug it in, everything goes off, like including my video. I don't really know why. I've used it with this computer before.
okay. Do you have earbuds, like a set of earbuds with like a mic? Do you have earbuds?
I
Nothing.
don't. I wonder if I have like another. Sorry, Bunsen. Hold.
Oh
tight,
no!
Bunsen.
Don't mess with Bunsen. Don't make it uncomfortable for him.
No.
Okay. Okay. Well, I just wanted to see if that
I'm
was like
wholly unprepared for this situation.
well, that's what happens when you go gallivanting around Italy for a while.
Apparently, my microphone is in my drawer, and it's just like I will die of ennui.
Well, you know what? In that case, we will just make do. I really want.
How is the audio? Is it okay?
It's laptop audio ish.
Quality then.
So I guess I'll leave it up to you. Would you like to continue in our current state of affairs? Actually, what we could do is we could just well, I don't know. We could.
I have a thought. I will be right back. I'm going to leave you to vamp for a second longer.
Okay, I can vamp all day. I'll talk with the chat.
I'm going to remove myself from the stream, but I'm going to try to find a solution.
Okay, all right. We'll stick around. Okay, so this may just be we could turn this into an episode of Supergirl Radio where things just don't go right, and then we do the Superpowered the DC story next week when we get things figured out. We've been podcasting since 2015, so we know what we're doing most of the time. I just want to tell any new people that we've done this quite a long time. Actually, Bunsen just left the shot. I should have pulled him up. But yeah, so they do talk about the Arrowverse quite a bit. They talk a lot about the Flash because Greg Berlanti was very heavily influenced by the Flash. Really loved the Flash as a kid growing up reading the comics. So they don't really talk about Supergirl a ton. They show Melissa Benoist's Supergirl in there, but she is not really talked about as much with the Flash. They talk about Arrow and the reemergence of Oliver Queen in the TV universe, but they don't acknowledge Smallville, which I thought was really strange because Smallville was quite the the big show that really kept DC Comics and Superman in the public eye for a long time, for 10 seasons. It ran for 10 seasons and they didn't mention Smallville once, which is so weird to me. Even though I wasn't a big fan of Smallville by the time it ended, but season 6, Lana Lang, she's the best. But other than that, it was very strange. Hey, Mike, what's up? You are muted, just FYI. Okay. Apparently when he tried to unmute himself, he was taken out. So that is weird. Okay, so New Rachel asks, what animated series did they reference? Oh, well, they talk about Batman, the animated series, of course. They talk about the Super Friends. I'm trying to think if there were any other animated things. They talked about like the creation of Harley Quinn, which is obviously a pretty big moment for Batman the animated series, but they didn't talk about Superman the animated series. Didn't talk about the Justice League Unlimited series, which I take great offense to because Justice League Unlimited is the greatest. So why would you leave that out? Justice League Unlimited is a series that I always point people to if I get asked sometimes like, well, if I wanted to get into DC stuff, where do I start? Where do I begin? And I'm like, watch Justice League Unlimited. That will introduce you to a lot of characters. It's great. It's a lot of fun. It's because people seem to love fun things. That's what I hear about DC stuff. It's not fun. Well, I guess if you want a fun thing, you can watch Justice League Unlimited. And it has woven storylines in it, and it also has Supergirl, which is not a bad thing. But so Justice League Unlimited is one of my favorite animated series from the world of DC. but they did not talk about that. So it was quite interesting to me what they did and did not discuss. I have a big list of things that were highlighted. But in terms of animation, they didn't. I guess they also talked about the Lego movies and how the video games. So at one point, DC Entertainment became a thing. I think that was under, oh gosh, what is that lady's name? Oh, I'm blanking on her. Diane Nelson. She was like the good executive at Warner Brothers in DC. There were a couple of really bad eggs over there, but I think Diane Nelson actually did a really good job. She's the one, and they talk about this in the documentary, that she is the one who expanded the world of DC Comics into different media. So she put them in video games. She put them on, Teen Titans Go. She did all these different things and put them in different spaces and formats and genres. And so that era had like the Lego movie, the Lego Batman movie, especially. So a lot of those things were under her leadership. So I thought that was quite interesting to learn more about what she had done. So some of the documentary actually talks about the different eras and people who are making decisions, which I think should be a documentary in and of itself. Okay. So question, Stanley asks, did they talk about Wonder Woman much? Oh, there's a lot. If you're a Wonder Woman fan, they do talk about Wonder Woman quite a bit. Patty Jenkins is featured as a prominent interview where she talks about the world of DC and Wonder Woman. They talk about William Moulton Marston and his entry point into writing Wonder Woman comics. They have Gal Gadot featured. They talk about the Wonder Woman film. They talk about the Wonder Woman TV series starring Linda Carter, who is also someone they interviewed for the documentary. And Linda Carter was looking great. I was like, well, I wish I could look as good as Linda Carter is looking now. So I was like, good for you, Linda Carter, looking great. She was there as well. So, and they talked about the time in the 70s when Wonder Woman was sort of a feminist icon and was sort of dragged into the world, the real world feminist movement that was happening. Whether Wonder Woman, the character, liked it or not, she was part of that because in the 1970s, DC Comics removed Diana Prince's Wonder Woman abilities. So she was powerless, but they taught her how to do kung fu in the comics. And so the feminist movement with Gloria Steinem, who is also part of the documentary where they show file footage of her interviews where she talks about how that was one thing that stuck out to her in the feminist movement in the 1970s about how Wonder Woman was stripped of her powers and how that was a big shift in how they thought about things. And there's obviously a campaign to try to get her powers restored, which they eventually were. But yeah, Wonder Woman is a very big aspect, I would say, of the Superpowered DC story documentary. They talk about pretty much kind of the big characters in the Justice League, not, some of the more I guess the B or C list characters, who I think those are like the greatest characters, must snap a car and the like. But they talk about kind of the main ones: Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, the Flash, Aquaman. They talk a little bit about Green Arrow and Green Lantern with their famous series that they did, where I think it was it Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams who did that series. Yeah, Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams who did the Green Arrow, Green Lantern comic book series where they go on this road trip to discover America and they learn about all these social issues. That's when I think Speedy has a drug problem, those kinds of things. I've never read that series, but I feel like that's one that I need to read because it's such a neat concept to put those two characters together and just have them like going and exploring the country. I think that's a really cool idea, but I've never read that series. So if anybody has any thoughts about that, let me know. I would love your suggestions. But that's definitely in my to read list. I think that would be a cool one to read. New Rachel says, if you haven't read Wonder Woman Unbound by Tim Hanley, I really recommend it. It's a detailed look into her history. I think that's the guy who also wrote a book about Lois Lane. I have the Lois Lane book. I can't remember if I finished it or not, but I was reading that. It was a pretty good detailed history. His books make me inspire me, I should say, inspire me to want to write a Supergirl book in that same vein, where it goes through the Supergirl history and talks about her creation and things like that. Because I think those books are really fun to read and give you a really good detail in it. So looks like Morgan is just an update on the technical side. Hang on a second. So we are probably not going to have good audio for this episode of Supergirl Radio. I think when you take a break and and you're out of sorts, sometimes things happen. So we are gonna work on this, and we're gonna figure out why we're having issues. It could be a StreamYard situation. It very well could. So we can troubleshoot that and see what's going on Morgan's side. I think it's okay for me. Let me know if I sound okay audio wise. But yeah, so I'm gonna try to see if I can get Morgan back on. We'll talk about some things, and then we'll go from there. So Stanley says you should write a Supergirl book. That would be really amazing. Well, I've done a lot of the work already. I did a lot of research into the character Supergirl and her comic book mythology. Back in 2019, I did a 60th anniversary panel, which you can actually listen to if you want to on supergirlradio.com. You can go and search for it on the search. You can find that panel and that presentation that I did. And you can actually click on the PowerPoint presentation and see the slides I put together, which I would totally do differently now. I would have a much better PowerPoint slides now. But I did a lot of the work in terms of reading pretty much most of her comic book stories. I haven't read all of them. I still need to go through the Superman family totally. I still need to finish all of the adventure comics. I've read most of those, but I don't know that I can't remember if I read all of those. So there are a couple of different eras of Supergirl that I still need to catch up on. And there's some little like one-shot appearances where she like appears in somebody else's book where I need to go read those as well. But I've got most of the sort of big picture items about the different eras of Supergirl. So that would be really fun for me to go through and go through all of those things again and reread them and talk about that. So I would just have to think about what that story is, what that book is. What does that look like? So maybe one day I'll drag my friend Morgan into co-writing a book about Supergirl's comic book history with me. I think that would be a really fun thing to do. And Morgan is a much better writer than me. So maybe that would be something that I can convince her to do with me. But I think those Tim Hanley books, the Wonder Woman one and the Lois Lane one, I think are really good because it gives you a quick insight into the comic book history, which I think is really interesting. I mean, comic books have had such a really fascinating kind of up and down. What is it? Ebb and flow. Is that the phrase? Comic book history ebbs and flows, where there's really big high moments, and then there's moments where they're like, "Are we going to have jobs tomorrow? I don't know." So I think some of that is really interesting about how there's good times and low times, and how do they get themselves out of the low times? What decisions do they make to get people to read the comics again? I think is a really interesting topic, which I think the Superpowered DC documentary kind of does a little bit, where they talk about some of those low times and the decisions that they made from the high level to try something. So I don't want to spoil it if you haven't read it. What I think we might do, since Morgan's having some audio issues for whatever reason, I think maybe StreamYard or her computer or her microphone are mad that she she went to vacationed for a while. Is my speculation. But for whatever reason, things are technically having trouble. But what we might do is we might release this episode as a kind of fun, maybe behind the scenes, a silly episode, and release this as like a Supergirl radio episode. And then maybe next week when we can reconvene and talk about Superpowered, the DC story, in a fuller, more glorious audio way. Maybe we can get the audio back up and good, and then we can hear and see everybody better that way. Because the documentary is 3 parts, and so there's a lot to talk about with those things. Some things I thought were good, some things I thought were mind-blowingly, head-scratchingly weird about it. But I'm also a huge documentary fan, and sometimes I'm a little bit of a snob about how people tell stories. But I think the story of DC Comics is one that should be told because they started the comic book. Well, they didn't start the comic book industry. They started the superhero comic book industry, and so they have a long, literally storied history where things and characters, concepts were created that had never been there before. Mark Waid talks in the documentary about how when Superman appears on the cover of Action Comics and he's holding a car, that had never really been done before at that time, and that would have been new to the people reading it. And I think that's something that I have to sort of think about, like putting myself in the shoes of people in 1938 when they first saw Superman. What would that have been like? I don't know that any of us can can imagine that, because for most of us, Superman especially has just been with us since we can remember being. And Supergirl in particular, since this is Supergirl radio, I've known about Supergirl since I was little and watched Supergirl the movie on TV, and I grew up not thinking it was a movie I enjoyed. And so when I grew up and everybody was hating it, I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess maybe maybe people don't like this movie." But Supergirl, is a character that has been with me for a long time. Superman has been with me a long time. Batman's been with me a long time. Batman probably actually more so got me into film with Tim Burton's Batman movie in 1989. That was kind of the first time where I was like, "Whoa, what is this?" I always loved Kermit the Frog. This is a real deep dive into the psyche of Rebecca Johnson. I've loved Kermit the Frog since I was little, so he was probably my first gateway into entertainment. But Batman 89 with Michael Keaton was the first big thing that I was like, I was part of that fandom that went to all the fast food places to get all the little trinkets that they would have, and bought the shirts and the trading cards and the magazines and the posters. I had a poster on my wall. So that was probably my first foray into like major fandom. And so there were a lot of things they talked in the documentary that I remembered and had a real strong personal connection to. Batman 89 is definitely one of those. And I think for people in my generation, I can only speak for like people of my age, but Batman 89 was a really transformative film for a lot of us, especially us DC comic fans. That was kind of our entry point for a lot of things. So anyway, I've rambled on and on. So what I think I'm going to do, and I'm going to try to communicate this to Morgan because she, I don't think, can connect. So what we're going to do, I'm going to make an executive decision. We are going to package this up if anybody is interested in listening to it. And we will reconvene next week, and we will talk about Superpowered, the DC story, and a fuller length picture. and talk about it in more depth. So that way we can have good audio, good video, and then maybe I will be a little more prepared because I was sort of struggling myself. We're trying to get back into the Supergirl radio swing of things. So please be patient with us and hang out with us. So I think that's going to do it for this episode of Supergirl Radio. And until next time, watch Superpowered the DC story because we'll talk about it next week. All right. So I think we will end this live stream, and I hope if you watch it later, you will enjoy it. This is a total chaos, but that's why people like Supergirl Radio, because you never know. I feel like that's why I like Supergirl Radio. I shouldn't speak on anybody else's behalf, but this is an unpredictable. This is a live and wired stream. You never know what's going to happen. You could be seeing Catch. You could see Mike. You could see Morgan, who has popped back up. So we'll see what Morgan's got.
So we can't figure it out. I borrowed Mike's Bluetooth headset, and I was like, okay, well, we have another, maybe mine is just not right. It's not working.
Okay.
And as soon as we plugged it in again, everything shut down again. And it was like, sorry, we can't access your camera, and something else is accessing your microphone. I was like, no, it's not. We tried everything. We tried this. We tried that. It just would not work. But it seems like the problem is mostly the microphone. So like, if I came in without the microphone, the video would work. But literally the second I like plug it in, all of a sudden it just I would just drop out of this.
I saw that I saw that happen a couple of times. That's so weird. And
it's not just my headset mic, which I thought, okay, maybe mine's a little long in the tooth, like maybe it's time to get a new one.
Yeah.
But then we plugged his Bluetooth headset in, and immediately the same thing happened.
Do you think it's a StreamYard issue?
I don't know. It might be. I mean, but you're in, and like you're plugged in, so I don't know. It feels like it's a StreamYard issue, but like it has to be something hitting up against something with my computer, like with my setup as well.
Well, because like some of these live streams I've had like scheduled for a while, so I don't know if like StreamYard doesn't like you to do that, because I had to restart the Facebook stream.
I don't know.
Maybe I'll create a new one for next week and see if that solves the issue. Actually, I'll do that. We'll end this live stream, and then maybe I'll create a new one, and then you can hop in and see if we're still having that trouble. Maybe it's like
maybe
a new versus old stream created thing.
We were like Googling things. We were like, we shut down and restarted like 3 times.
Oh,
we
no.
Updated drivers. We were like, we're gonna get this. Nothing.
I'm just going to take responsibility. It's probably my fault for scheduling things way in advance.
I guess we'll see. It's crazy.
I'll take responsibility for this. Stanley says, love the unpredictable fun and entertainment. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed, Stanley. Thank you for joining us for Supergirl Radio.
We like to keep you all on your toes. We like to keep it fresh.
So Morgan, here's what I propose. I propose that we could release this chaotic episode of Supergirl Radio as an audio podcast. We could do that.
Sure.
So that would at least be something kind of fun, a little behind the scenes, maybe like a little,
peek behind the curtain. The technical issues.
So we could do that. And then maybe next week we can reconvene and talk about Superpowered the DC story. Then would that be okay with you?
We could try that. This did take a lot longer than I thought.
Well, that is okay. We're trying to get back into the podcasting space.
We gotta ease our way in. The funny thing is, I watched the whole documentary, like all 3 parts today. I was ready. I was coming in ready. I was like, don't forget to mention this thing. Like,
did you make notes like you did that one time about what was that thing that you made notes about Man of Steel?
Man of Steel. Yeah. And it was just like Jonathan Kent, question mark. Uncool. Like, lots of time on Krypton. My notes were really in depth. We both remember that.
I love your Man of Steel notes so much. So I guess if you want to save your documentary notes for next time, we'll do that, because I am so curious about your thoughts about the way this documentary is structured. Because I know you watch a lot of documentaries. I watch a lot of documentaries.
I love a good doc.
It's mostly cult documentaries, if we're honest, but I think or crime documentaries for
I
you
was
especially.
Like, when is somebody going to be initiated into the cult of DC or something? And then we all had to wear the Wonder Woman outfit, and I thought, that's weird. I was really missing like a key ingredient to this documentary, which is like something terrible happening.
Some new executive comes in and like starts building up this sort of like guru stature for himself.
We all have to chant, "You are Superman," and then I thought that was weird, but like kind of fun. I was like, what I'm missing is the drama and the crime aspect.
Yes. But there is some crime fighting, I guess, that happens in it. So we will release this as maybe like a silly Supergirl radio episode. If anybody wants to listen to it, they surely can.
Technical difficulties, the episode.
Really that should be viewed on video though
for best results. Watch the YouTube video, because at least then you get to see me blink in and out. You get to see Mike try to troubleshoot and then blink in and out. You get a little taste of Bunsen.
We got a little lab cat action. That's
Rebecca
all I needed.
Vamps for a half an hour, just hoping for the best.
Well, sometimes it's nice to talk with the chat. I think we do. New Rachel says there is a Smallville adjacent cult.
We did both watch that documentary. All 2 seasons.
We'll have to talk about the
you mean the intense mentions of Smallville that were in this documentary?
You mean the no mentions of Smallville that were?
No, Rebecca, because one time the cover of Smallville is up when they pan through a timeline. And I went, I feel seen. There they are. They were like, well, we couldn't talk about DC on TV without talking about, and I was like, and they were like, the Arrowverse. And I was like, oh, because it feels like we were just in the 90s though. And like, maybe we're skipping something at all, anything. And there was right on the timeline. I saw like the cover of the season 1 Smallville DVDs like fly by, and I was like, oh, wait, there's more to say.
It's not like that show ran for 10 seasons or anything.
No, they were like, there was also some other shows on TV, and I was like the one that was there for a decade. The first and only time I've ever been insulted on Smallville's behalf. I was like, who's you? We went through a lot with that show. You rewind and you talk about it for 2 seconds, please. Like you did about Supergirl.
Yeah, they talked a lot about bold and daring new choices, but they never mentioned the Pete Ross Kryptonite Gum episode.
They did. Remy Zero.
That was bold and daring. So yeah. Okay, well, we'll talk about all of that in the next episode of Supergirl Radio. We will maybe troubleshoot some of these things and see how it goes. And then
next time, I think it's gonna be good.
We swear we've been podcasting since 2015. We're
doing great, you guys. I'm not even jet lagged anymore. I don't know what's happening.
Well, that is okay. We all have our share of technical difficulties occasionally. And like I said, I think this is probably my fault. So we will figure it out, and we'll be back next week. So, all right. Well, hope everyone has an enjoyable evening. Watch Superpowered, the DC story on Max. Come back next week. We'll talk about it.
Notes.
Take your own notes. Bring them to the chat. We will talk about everything, including the lack of Smallville mentions and the glossing over of Zack Snyder and the Snyderverse. So we will talk about all of that next week on Supergirl Radio. And if I can get to, I should have had the video. I didn't even do like the intro video, but I feel like
we never even got a chance.
I feel like I need to do an outro video just to close us out here.
Let's wrap it up.
So come back and hang out with us next week, and we will talk about the documentary on Max.
McGurk! I love typing.
Not mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom, because
she looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. It's so fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.